All right, these tripods are getting a little bit crazier each time. I'm actually using a garbage can for a tripod. So my name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. We are called In The Image Clothing Company because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. So I've had a few prerequisites since before I founded In The Image Clothing Company, just to allow the body to work, right? And that's to lace the shoes that you're wearing with In The Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, including just tying them evenly over toward the inside, right, on both sides. And yeah, that shoelacing technique, really all it does is allow the shoe that you're wearing to fit on your foot like a glove would on the hand, right, to the best of that design's capability. So we do recognize there's slight differences or major differences if and when, right, deformities, surgeries, amputations, whatever it may be within your own situation that sets you apart a little bit, or possibly more than a little bit, right? That's fine. But we are all universally designed skeletal system wise, right? It's not about the fat content, the muscle mass, it's about the skeletal system. So I'm actually gonna take this shirt off. I was planning to, through the video, what I mean is I'm gonna take it off before we get into the video, mostly because that sun right there is our lighting, right? And we only have so much of it until it goes down for the night. So the reason I'm gonna take my shirt off, that outer shirt, and the reason I was going to do that through the video anyway, is because within this video, well, here's the thing, right? I make bold claims, and we as a company stand on these bold claims, how we shouldn't have to stretch, okay? Unless something very major happens, and we shouldn't have to work out or exercise to get up to a certain capability level, because the body's just designed to work. And really it should, again, within our own individuality, right? It really should, unless it's being altered. And so being the company that we are, being a clothing company, we recognize and realize the truth of the only thing that's placed directly on us at all times is our clothing. The only thing that's placed physically directly on us at all times is our clothing, and it's the only thing that has the potential to, and really does, physically alter our bodies at all times if it's imbalanced or unnatural, right? So that's what we do, is we show free modifications within clothing you can make to balance it, right? And we talk about materials, and we'll have clothing available eventually, meaning just when that comes, that you can purchase, right? Always 100% natural materials, and we'll never have any kind of tags protruding from the inside, and anything like that, right? No branding on the exterior of it or logoing at all. So I don't know if I finished my prerequisites, but that lacing paired with just removing the tags from everything, stemming at the tongues of the shoes up through your clothing. I think I said it, but if I didn't, I feel kind of, this video is a little bit kind of rushed. I don't know if it's the lighting or if it's just today feels weird or what it is, but I'm also using, like I said, the tripod that I'm using, which is great, but it's just different than my normal location, because they actually took the soccer goals away since it's no longer really soccer season here in Utah. So what I'm doing within this video, though, the point of this video is I've talked about many times where the clothing needs to sit, right? And things we'll always incorporate within the intentions behind our designs at In The Image Clothing Company. And those are these, right? The pants need to sit entirely above the hips, very slightly higher in the front than the rear. And then the upper, the tops, right? The shirts need to sit with the shoulder seams entirely behind the shoulders. When I say that, I mean, there's that little bone on the top of your shoulder, right? Just because we are about the skeletal system. It doesn't matter how much fat content or muscle mass or what you got going on with your shoulders, that little bone on the top, the seam just needs to be, as mine is here, right, behind that bone. That just allows your body to work how it would, right? And the ones at the edges just need to be right at the very edges, ideally, just, again, to allow the body to just do what it would do without restricting it. Yeah, here's the thing. I've talked about many times, gone into very great depth, right, as I say, within videos of the natural workings of the human body, right? And I've shown the walking gait cycle, right, in the grass barefooted. I've described the body in a lot of ways. I have a video called There Is a Lot to Internal Rotation. I have my new series that I just started called The Truth Behind, and I went over so far, these are each separate videos, right? The deadlift, push versus pull, the squat, the pull up, and the balls of the feet, right? Where I go in depth of the way the body actually works in its natural workings before altered through worldly things, and clothing being one of those. I just discuss, because I really do have a very, very deep understanding of the natural human body and the way that it naturally works before it's altered. And within those videos, I discuss that, right? And that's what we do, is try to get our bodies back to how our God designed them, because that's how they work, and that's how we don't stretch, is by allowing them to get back to that state, or just stay there if it hasn't been altered, which is ideal, right? So I've made a video, well, I've talked about it in a lot of videos, but then I have a specific video called Shoulder Seams Must Be Behind Shoulders. And it's what I was just discussing, how, again, these top seams need to sit, right? There's that bone on my shoulder. They need to sit behind the shoulders, behind that bone, right? That's the bone right there, and it seems behind it, right? So, because we're really trying to just keep our natural internal rotation, or get it back in a modern 2024 where people are so chronically in external rotation, right? So again, I've gone into all these things in depth within videos you can find. If you just look up In The Image Clothing Company, you can find our videos just on the internet, right? We do have our official domain, InTheImageClothingCompany.com, but still under construction as of today's date, right? The 8th of October 2024. But that's where you'll go, but you'll find us. We're on the internet. The point is, the reason I'm kind of rushing again, I don't know how much of it's the light or whatever else it is tonight, but what I want to talk about up here is, I haven't really mentioned this within videos, and I think some people don't really know this, and there'd be no problem with not knowing it, right? Is what I mean. It's probably a common thing that people don't know. I mean, something you just wouldn't really think about. But when you stand, if you think about your spine, right? Your spine is from the base of your skull to your tailbone. It's called your coccyx, right? That last vertebrae. You got your cervical spine, your thoracic spine, and your lumbar spine, right? And your spine kind of snakes slightly, right? In, out, and then back in again at the neck. Very slightly for that, like I always say, right? Slight bend, but neutrally stacked, active core, slight posterior tuck, internal rotation, gripped arches with nails on the toes, and then internal rotation of the shoulders, right? And I've gone over this in other videos. If you don't understand all that terminology right now, that's okay. But what I'm getting at is, the shoulder blades are something I talk about all the time, right? The scapulas, those big flat bones on the back that should have a lot of natural motion, right? Until restricted through worldly things and clothing, especially clothing. Well, when you're standing, your shoulder blades aren't at the same front to back, if you will, as your spine. Your spine, picture where my neck is coming down. Yeah, once you hit the base of your cervical spine, your thoracic spine, like I was saying, does come out a little bit and then back in at the bottom for the lumbar, but not very much. But your shoulder blades are actually behind where your spine is. In a good neutral position, your shoulders are behind your head, right? Meaning, right, they are. That's why when you hear people, I always talk about, I don't use the word posture, right? But again, we just have a natural neutral stance, really just the only way the body works. I have my video that I made, the body only has one position, right? And then we hinge from there, and we reach, and we work out of our natural active position, really kind of like the only position the body actually has. And I've gone into that, right? I have a video called The Body Doesn't Sit in Chairs. The human body doesn't sit in chairs, right? Because then that takes this natural position and it just alters it, right? When you're at a somewhere near 90-degree bend here and here, that's just very unnatural. But the reason I'm mentioning that within this, other than that's good for everybody to know, because it is unnatural, it deactivates your core. But since people are sitting so often, a lot of times the shoulders will be so external that they're at a similar, like, again, front to back, if you will, as the spine and the head. But here's the thing, you don't want to be here. You don't want to be having the tops of your shoulders and like where your arms coming down. You don't want that to be in line with the rest of your body, just because that's not how the body's designed. It really isn't. The shoulders, the reason why I was starting to mention posture is because when people say to like how to stand with good posture, what they'll say is to put your shoulders back. Now, the reason I don't use the word posture, I've said this many times, is because we can't tell our bodies what to do. And being conscious of like standing a certain way, right, is essentially telling our bodies how to work, and we can't. I always say you can try to all you want and then have fun with your foam roller and your stretching routines, right? Or we just don't do that, because we shouldn't try to tell our bodies to do something they don't do. We should just leave our bodies in their natural working position. And again, that's what we do here at In The Image Clothing Company, is allow them to get back to that. So the point is, the shoulders, because if you do look at those shoulder blades, they need to be in their like neutral position. And when they are there, you can see where they are right now in a neutral position. Now I won't adjust anything, but I'll just pivot. I'll just turn toward the camera so you can see my side. Look where my shoulders are. They're like actually behind like my ears, if you will, right? Behind my, like the center of like where my head would be, because there is that slight natural curve within the spine. And so within a lot of clothing designs, like this is just neutral, right? But my shoulders are actually not here, but here, neutral. Not here, but here, okay? Meaning this is incorrect, but where so many people are, but this is natural. Because look at my thumbs. Your thumbs are going to naturally point forward, and if your shoulders aren't where they would naturally be, meaning behind, like the ear is really a good place to look, right? To kind of like judge where your shoulders should be sitting. If they're behind your ears, I'm just gonna use the ears for this, right? Because that's really a good visual, because that's really what happens. If they are behind them where they would be, then your thumbs are straight forward, and then you can just do things straight forward out of a natural neutral position, the way the body would work until altered. But if like the tops of your shoulders are straight like under your ears, look at now my thumbs are pointing in a little bit, because my rotations within my shoulders are altered from their natural to coming forward a little bit. It puts you into external rotation, even though your thumbs are pointing in. And that's why I kind of mentioned that video. I've gone into a lot of this, but there's just so much going on within the body that things aren't as simple as just internal rotation and external rotation. Yes, at its very base, that's kind of how it is, but the way that the body has its rotations, there's so much going on within, especially like the shoulder and the hips, right? Well, everything though, I mean ankles, but I've gone into it in my videos within In The Image Clothing Company content, so you can see that stuff. But yeah, the point is, I always talk about how the shoulder seams need to sit behind the shoulders, because what that does is actually allow them to get, like follow my thumbs, right, to their, from here is incorrect, but so many people are here. But natural is where you see me standing, naturally, because I've allowed my body to get back to natural, right? Back here. Because from here, you are just neutral. And like, look at my rotations, right? Let's see if I can get my hand out of the trees there. Like if this is like pretty well neutral, right? Like I've got so much rotation. It's very rare to see nowadays, because they're back here. Do you see that? If they were here, it's like everything will have to do something different than it would naturally do to just try to accommodate for the positions your shoulders are sitting in because of the seams. So what I was going to focus on as well though is the upper traps, because the muscles that raise and lower your shoulders, look where they are. I mean, yeah, I'm bent over, but like, again, neutral hands, they're behind my head, because your trap comes up back here and connects into the back of your neck. It doesn't just like come up and connect straight on the side. If that were the case, then you'd be going like from the sides, but this is not how your body actually works. It works back here. If you were to be doing like those gym exercises, I don't like gym exercises just universally for what they are for the body, but if you were to grab like weight, right, and do, they're called shoulder shrugs, the same thing is just like shoulder shrugging, right, but with weights, you would be doing it here. And look, my shoulders are actually behind my neutral spine, right? And so that's why shoulder seams have to sit behind the shoulders, as I always talk about, as you will always see me wearing, being the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. And as in our designs, behind that, the intention will always go to allowing the shoulder seams to sit behind that little bone on the top of the shoulder, because that's why. I mean, this is the neutral position. Even though your spine is like in front of that a little bit, your scapula is its own, the scapula is the shoulder, right? I mean, when my shoulders are moving, it's that big flat bone that's allowing that. All the muscles within the rotator cuff, they go in and attach to that scapula. The shoulder's this whole thing. You know, I always say the shoulders, the upper trap, the mid trap, the lower trap, the rhomboids, the rotator cuff, the scapula being the bone itself, the deltoid, the tricep, the pec. I mean, all that is the shoulder, plus anything else that's playing into it. I mean, the lat connects into the shoulder. So the shoulder isn't just this thing here, like just this little ball and socket. It's all those muscles going into it as well. And really what it is the scapulas. That's pretty much what it boils down to, because they're back here. Again, as you can see how much motion the scapulas have. Well, in neutral, in like their neutral spot, it's actually here, which is behind where like your spine is, because they actually wrap around your rib cage, behind your rib cage, and your rib cage connects into your spine. So your scaps are behind that, okay? So your shoulders really should be, just because again, they would naturally be, we shouldn't try to tell them to do anything, but that's actually what's happening within clothing design, that's having the shoulder seams sit like exactly on top of the shoulders. What that does is actually put them in a position that's unnatural. The shoulders need to be behind you, right? Just meaning they would naturally be. Because from here, now you have your motion and you can reach, and then from there, the scaps can really wrap, but they don't sit here. They sit back here and then move out of this position, right? So I think that's beautiful. You can see again where the upper traps connect into. You can notice the scapula is actually behind the rib cage. I mean, always really, I mean, because yeah, it wraps around the rib cage, but I mean, you're not going to go through life with it like with the scapula sitting closer to like on the sides of your rib cage. They're going to be back here. So a lot of clothing designs and side seams, right? I always say, if we can, always try to not have side seams, right? If you can. You'll rarely ever, well, I don't even know if you ever, up until today's video, well over 100 videos that I've made for In The Image Clothing Company, all averaging somewhere around a half hour in length. I don't think you have ever, well, I can't quite say that, but I mean, like maybe 5 of the videos at very most was I wearing a shirt, like an undershirt, like just directly on me with side seams. Because what'll happen is they'll stitch the side seams like straight down from the shoulder seam, right? That's the problem. Well, there's other things that the side seams do, but that's a big problem with them. They'll take this, and if they're going to have a seam coming straight down, then once they get to the armpit, they'll come straight up from there and have the shoulder seams sitting like in line with that. So now you're standing like this and your pelvis follows, right? Then the arches collapse, knees come in, everything's in external rotation, pelvis is anterior, head is forward, and now you're wondering why you can't stand up straight, right? And there's a lot of other reasons that I've gone into, but because I wasn't really planning on discussing that necessarily within this video, but yeah, that's why. So yeah, I mean, I already talked about all that, so check out our content. Like seriously, at In The Image Clothing Company. But no, the big points are what I was saying, where the muscles actually insert, where the scapulas actually rest, and where that internal rotation lies is actually behind your like neutrality, like the neutral part of where your spine is and like those ears, right? It's actually behind them, where your shoulders would naturally sit. So I just kind of wanted to point that out a little bit, because I've definitely made it very, very clear many times that the shoulder seams just have to, on the universal human design, sit behind the shoulders. But now I've given, within this video, more of like an anatomy explanation. When I was walking over here and got like prompted to make this video, I was going to mostly talk about that upper trap, just because, again, that muscle that raises and lowers the shoulder, it comes up and connects behind the neck. Like it spans like this, right? And then you have the mid trap that's between the scapulas, and then the lower trap that's below them. And that all aids in keeping your shoulders behind you. That's funny, yeah, right? Funny just mean I wasn't really planning on, I mean, I guess that's what I was saying, but yeah, that's it. They all will work in conjunction with each other to keep your shoulders where they would just naturally be, but again, being behind your rib cage, really being behind your spine, which is where your rib cage inserts on the back. Okay, so also, yes, this shirt does have the collar seam. I've done a video on, I call it the dreaded collar seam. That's what the video was titled, and I have done the modification that I have found, that I show within that video and other videos. So yes, there is a collar seam here, but the modification has been done to it. All it takes is a pair of scissors. You can go find that video and do that. If you do have any shirts that have this, it's altering your body's natural workings greatly, universally across all humans. Again, we speak on just nothing but undisputed universal truth here at In The Image Clothing Company, so go check that out. But again, same thing. I mean, that's right on your trap, because I actually, within that video, the dreaded collar seam is the title of that video. That's what I talked about, is what it does to that upper trap. And it's almost always, very, very majority of the time, it's almost always on the left side, right? That where that collar seam is, almost always. And so that left trap, just, you know, kind of correlating this video with that one, I guess. Yeah, so behind your body is really where your shoulders naturally sit. And then that's what allows that pelvis, like I was kind of explaining, but I want to just be clear, that's what allows that pelvis to get posterior, is because your shoulders are actually just naturally behind you, but it shouldn't be a conscious thing, right? So yeah, okay, cool, all right, sweet. Yeah, because I was realizing that I've talked about how the seams need to sit behind your shoulders so often, but some people might be like, well, why? Because aren't the shoulders like in line with the neutral body? You know, if you don't know, you don't know. I mean, I didn't know these things for a long time, but no, they aren't. They're actually back here. Because I mean, if I were to be like doing anything, I mean, even just like a hip hinge, my shoulders, you can tell, are behind me, and watch my hands, right? Internal rotation. The emphasis that I always put on everything, and I've said before, really, like what you could boil down In The Image Clothing Company's like focus within the body is to get back that natural internal rotation. That's something I've said before, but because yeah, I mean, again, if the seams aren't back there, you'll be in external rotation. I know my hands are in, but I am in external rotation within the shoulder capsule. Again, there's a lot to it. It's more of an activation, which muscles are activating rather than which rotation is actually like physically happening. Right? The muscles that activate internal rotation would keep your shoulders back here rather than where you would think of as being like in line with your body. They're actually supposed to be back here. Supposed to be, meaning that's just the only way they actually work, right? Like actually work. Otherwise, you can't reach, right? So anyway, yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna just kind of spin around a little bit with like standing in a neutral stance, right? Gripped arches, internal rotation down the legs, posterior tuck, active core, shoulders here, I'm not gonna say back, but right where they would be, neutral and internal. And now after I've described all that, very clear to I'm gonna make this very clear, none of that should be conscious, but that's the position the body's in if you were to describe it, and that's where we're trying to get back to. So I'm just gonna kind of like spin around and just like stand pretty normal, so you can see the position of my shoulders compared to like where my head is, right? And some people get so focused on trying to keep their like the back, like their neck like straight, thinking this is good posture, but no. If you have a heel on your shoe, that might seem more normal. And if your pelvis is anterior, now to get up here vertical, you might want to think that you need your neck to be straight. But no, activating your core, there's actually a slight forward bend in the neck, and that's very natural. And so that's where that position comes from. Because it's like what I talk about all the time, I kind of have a problem with specialists and doctors, because if you're not coming from an actual foundational standpoint of the body in its natural form before altered through clothing and worldly things, then if you're just looking at it because you see people around and you try to take like a general consensus of how the body seems to be working rather than the way it was actually designed by our God, then you're just going to be looking at it incorrectly. The body works out of its natural form as if like, I mean, out of modesty, but like as if you didn't have any clothing on. How would your body operate then? That's natural, right? And that's why I always say like barefooted in the grass type stuff, right? Clothing sitting to where the body isn't being pulled or pushed anyway. Then that's what we describe here in the Image Clothing Company. Me, Evan Strong, being the founder, that's how I describe the body as it is and as it was before altered, right? So I don't care what doctors say or specialists or anything. I do not care. I care about the body as it is and universal truth of the foundation, right? Which a lot of people are just out of touch with. No matter how much schooling they've had or how many books they've read, the body only does what it does, and we don't get to decide that or tell it, or it doesn't change because of the clothing we've been wearing or the, no, I mean, it doesn't change no matter what the world is. Or I mean, also like the radius within the hand, we're using so many flat things that you might think the shoulder should be here. I made a video, by the way, you can go find about the human body likes radius, or the hand, something like that within the title. You'll find it in the Image Clothing Company. But if your hands are flat, you might think that straight up from the body is where the shoulders would sit, but no. If your hands can open into nice, like open, mobile rotations, right, without compensation places, because you just have an open hand, right, nice open natural palm, then yeah, your shoulders just sit behind you, right? Again, no heels on the shoes, that'll alter it. Pant waistline has to be allowing the pelvis to be neutral, or else that'll alter it. So yeah, I mean, I don't care. I do not care about doctors' opinions, because they're opinions. Even if it's in a book, a textbook somewhere, somebody just wrote that textbook. I mean, who's to say they knew what they were talking about? But if we look at the body as it was, because I don't want to be like, I know what I'm talking about, but I do, because that's how I approach it, is before we ever altered it, before there was a possibility of a patterning happening, how was the body and will the body be if all the things of the world in between didn't exist or got taken away, right? Because we can't decide how the body actually works, but we can get it back to that state, okay? All right, so again, my name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. As you can tell within this video, we are so much more than just a clothing company. We have In The Image Clothing Company podcast, where we just discuss the gospel of Jesus Christ, and I love that. I love it so much. Go check that out if you'd like to. It'll be more places than just video form. It's a podcast. We'll have it in just audio availability as well, right? Places where you can find podcasts. We actually kind of do currently already as of today's date, but yeah, relatively new company as of today's date. So things are going to, I'm going to be able to kind of send you places easier to find us, I guess, as we go down the road. But depending on when you see this, you'll just be able to go those places anyway. But yes, a lot of videos that I've already posted. As I said, I really do have an immense understanding of the body, but not out of some kind of opinion, belief, or book, but as the body actually is. The phone might fall, it's getting a little bit windy. All right, the phone meaning the camera, right? Yes, it is the 8th of October, 2024. There's some mosquitoes out here. Like I said, I know I've said it a few times, but my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. Please try to ensure that your shoulder seams sit behind your shoulders. Otherwise, you will never have a naturally functioning body. We cannot fight our clothing. We just can't win that fight. I, in cases trying to fight clothing, wouldn't win the fight either, just because I have the knowledge of how the body works. I mean, you can't constantly be trying to hold something in a position where it's not naturally going to sit, meaning like the clothing, right? You cannot, I could not either in those cases win a fight against clothing, trying to just allow the body to work, right? So that's what we do here. Just allow the body to work. It only does what it does, regardless of what anyone's told you or what you want to believe or what I could want to believe or did believe at any times in our lives. Okay, thank you.